Hi again, and thank you so much for joining me. I wanted to make more of a cultural comment today, and by way of giving a bit of a life hack into understanding why people see things differently to us, and why things that are important to you or might not necessarily be important to them, and why things that they seem to be chasing after as really important are not at all important to you. We're all a little bit different, but also I find that the very often where we were raised, who we were raised amongst, even the neighborhood that you were raised in, the school that you went to, has got a lot to say about what you deem to be important in life. And you can tell by groups of children when they get together the sort of things they talk about. Might talk about gaming. Another group might talk only about football or rugby, or another group might talk only about academics. And so every person talks about the things that are important to themselves. And we need to learn to read the room to make sure that we are able to appreciate the cultures of other people. Every sector of society has its status symbols, and these are very seldom transferable. I use the example of a goat. Now, if you gave me a goat for a gift, I'd be horrified, perplexed, confused, not quite know what to do with the thing. It can mow my lawn for me if it chooses to. But beyond that, it would have no significant use because that's just not culturally appropriate to me to give me a goat here where I live in England. However, I do know of a true story where a young girl was given a goat in a very rural part of the continent of Africa. And that goat actually saved her life in the extent that it was a female goat. She was able to milk it and she was able to sell the milk to neighbors. So she was able to gain a bit of income from that. She was able to use the milk herself, not only for milk, but for goat's cheese and so on. And she was able to breed that goat. And with the offspring that came from that breeding, she was able to sell them. She was able to sell the meat. She was able to create a food supply to local people. And so that goat became a status symbol to her because it actually helped to inform her future and grow her future. And it became something that was important to her that would never be important to me. And so they are seldom transferable. Let's say, for instance, let's use a really silly example here. Let's say you were raised in a neighborhood where green cars were seen as the status symbol. If you had a green car, you were super cool, you were amazing, and everybody wanted to go roaring up and down the streets of your neighborhood in their green car. And one day you finally scraped enough money together to get yourself a green car. And you were invited to a function at somebody else's house on the other side of town. And off you went in your green car, expecting oohs and ahs from all the people as they saw you pulling up in your green car, only to realize that nobody batted an eyelid at your car. And even though you mentioned to the other people at the function that you had a green car outside, nobody was even remotely interested and, in fact, looked at you a little bit funny. You also noticed that outside there were no other green cars except yours. In fact, there were a variety of other color cars, and nobody cared about what the color of their car was. And it was certainly not a topic of conversation ever at any point during the evening. And then you start to realize the things that were important to me are not important to other people. And sometimes we are marked in society by the things that we deem to be important. It can be the way you dress, it can be a certain hairstyle that everybody has in your little group of friends. And outside of that group of friends, it just doesn't fit in. A way of dressing, for instance, maybe you all wear a certain type of clothing, a certain type of footwear, and when you transfer into another group, it just doesn't work there. And so we learn that different people see things differently, and different things are important to different people. And when we start to realize this, it helps us to better assimilate ourselves into society when we realize that actually other people have a point of view as well. And it's so interesting to find out from others what is important to them. I've seen in situations in my life coaching where a young student in a high school, for instance, was seen as some sort of a demigod amongst the students because they were so risky. They were so on. They pushed the boundaries all the time. They were seen as a rebel, and in some sectors of society, rebellion equals cool, awesome, amazing. And other sectors of society, it's seen as something that's going to seriously hamper your future prospects. And I've seen a kid like that eventually get expelled from the school, and their name is spoken of in awed, hushed tones because they actually managed to get expelled because of their cool, awesome, wonderful behavior. And that person's gone to another school where they were completely a square peg in a round hole, and they didn't fit in, and nobody was oohing and ahhing over their exploits of rebellion and classroom disruption and rudeness. In fact, they were being put down and being told to be quiet by the other people. And suddenly they realized they were in a totally different place. They did not fit in there, and they had to learn a totally new way of doing things, otherwise they would not fit in. And it's a case of reading the room. What is going to work for you? What worked for you in the old place is not necessarily going to work for you in a new place. When you move into a new neighborhood, find out what that neighborhood is about. Is it a party neighborhood and you looking for a quiet life? Is it a quiet neighborhood and you're looking to make a lot of noise? We learn how to blend in. We learn how to be socially appropriate in doing these things without losing that the ultimate essence that makes us who we are. So, giving you a little bit of a life hack here is learning to read the room, learning to read the society that you're a part of, and making sure that you can add well to it and you can add value to it. And nobody's wrong, by the way. Every culture has got their own reasons for doing what they do. So you, be the best you that you can be. And I know that you can lead a very successful life. God bless. Catch up again soon.